Thanks for joining us today. I guess the first question would just be how you got your start as a voice actress.
Well, I was in a local singing competition, and one of the judges was a talent agent, and they said, "You want to go on auditions?" And I said, "Sure." And they said, "Go on this." I was in high school, and they said, here's a voiceover audition." And I was like, "What's that?" And it was for wart cream, because this is a very glamorous industry. I don't know if you realize that. And I had to say something like, "Ew, gross, a wart." And I got the job, and I was like, "Wait a minute, that's a job?" So I really loved it. I love just going into the booth and putting on the headphones and singing "We Are the World." And so that was it. And then I was still doing theater and all that other stuff, but the voiceover thing is what I kept coming back to.
It's interesting that you mentioned theatre. Do you feel, we've asked this to a few different actors and actresses, do you feel that the theatre background helps you as a voice actor, helps you, to visualise as opposed to, work for TV, where it's, following a very kind of strict...
Yeah, all my favorite actors, I always end up finding out that their background is in theater. Usually musical theater, actually, because for this side of the industry, we really need to know how to use our voices and manipulate them and not lose them. And, we can walk into the booth and find out, like, oh, today you're playing a little boy, an old lady, and a creature. I often don't know what is going to happen, so I need to be ready to use this. And theater just there's no training like it. If you can do that, and I do a lot of audiobook work, and to me that's the equivalent of doing a play, and doing all the characters in the play. So it's tough. It's like it's using every skill set you have, and so yeah, it's the best training. And I know there's like some great theater schools in Scotland I've heard about. So, because I was watching Outlander and I looked up some of their training, because I'm a dork like that. Yeah.
Excellent.
Just going back to your thing about your audiobook side of things, how do you find keeping track of what character you're in? Because it sounds like audiobooks are recorded pretty much chapter by chapter.
Yes.
And it could be really long, whereas other audiobooks have quite short.
Well, thank God for Pro Tools. And I keep it depends if I'm doing the session myself or if an engineer puts little flags in for the characters. And then I say, what did this one Margaret sound like? And he'll go, oh, 1 second. And then I'll hear Margaret's voice. If I'm doing it, I have ways of marking it. And often I've made the mistake of not knowing a book was going to have a sequel and not marking those things. And then all of a sudden they're like, it happened recently with a book that I thought I couldn't even believe got published. And they're like, there's a sequel. And I was like, are you sure? Should be quiet about that. But yeah, it is funny. And I had to go back and find the voice references and like listen to this dreadful book. Because I don't like listening to myself, which makes it all the more painful to do. But it's a arduous task to the audiobook itself is hard. But then that is, even with Pokemon and jobs like that, they would keep a library of all our voices because you never knew when a character would all pop back in after like 2 seasons. And you're like, wait, who's back? What? That one person that had one line in episode 7 now has a whole story arc? Okay. So, got it. I took a class where I learned how to edit with tape, cutting, splicing tape, even though this new stuff existed, but that gives you the best idea of really what editing is. And I can't even imagine how they did it in the olden days. It's awful. So it's a whole chore, keeping track of those voices.
That's interesting, given that some of the audiobooks I've listened to going into the office in the morning, you listen to it and the person like, uses a completely different character's voice, and you think, oh, you've messed that one up. You think, why have you not noticed that? This is unaudible.
Yeah.
It's a big book as well.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that slips through the cracks, unfortunately. And because of the length of audiobooks, it's hard to micromanage them. And a lot of the time we're working at home by ourselves. So while I do my best to keep those things straight, it happens. Even with great narrators sometimes, unfortunately. Yeah.
What field then gives you the most kind of freedom to find characters? You know, would you say audiobooks? You know what the characters are because you've got the description there, so it's really kind of personality you're adding there. But you know, when you've got like video games or you're dubbing anime or what have you, there's only so much there. You have to kind of create an entire personality. So what do you get the most kind of enjoyment from, and what gives you the most kind of freedom?
That's a good question. I mean, look, within dubbing, you're really constrained to the voice flaps. I know some actors who want to be completely different than the original Japanese animation. I don't feel like that. I feel like they had the original writer and director in that room. I want to honor that to an extent. Someone told me they don't listen to the original Japanese when they dub, and I thought, well, that's not very nice to the people who created this. And again, sometimes if it's not good, I will try to alter it, or if it just doesn't match what's happening on screen. But not that I'm limited, because there sometimes becomes a freedom in constraint. I don't know how else to explain that. You find a weird moment or something because you have to say it so fast, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, that's a read I never would have done. So that's a fun, like, aha moment when that happens. But doing new animation is really when you find the most freedom, especially because you're playing off of other people, and just spontaneous stuff can happen, especially when you're in a room full of amazing actors. And so just, those are magical moments that wouldn't it's unfortunate when we can't all record together.